Welcome to the Life of Hair. My name is James Atkinson. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode. This week's episode is another reactionary video, although I'm not really reacting as such. It's more of a analytical view of the video. Now, this was recently requested by one of you guys, the subscribers, for me to do my critique on. And remember guys, critique is not criticism, and it is very important for us to move forward in this industry, in the world in general. If we do not have critique, there is no way of us moving forward. So if you're watching this for the very first time, you've never seen one of these episodes, it is not about being critical. It is purely giving a more detailed analysis of the video. That is the definition of critique, and that is exactly what I try to achieve. So this episode is by the fantastic Kenneth Siu, who does wonderful haircuts but doesn't really narrate over what he makes. He makes a nice haircut and then he posts it with some nice soft music over the top, which is great, but I think his techniques are very technical, and so when this one came through from a subscriber, I thought it was definitely worth adding to the list. Now, I know some other people have requested videos as well, but they are generally around the people who I have just recently done videos on. So if you have a video that you have in mind and that you've seen before and you'd like me to comment on it, then please tell me about it down in the description. I'd love to have a look at it and see if I can make a video about it for you and give my analytical deep dive review into the video for you to enjoy. So I hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do guys, you know what to do. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already, and chat to me down in the comment section. I love hearing what you think of the videos. I read every single comment. It's really difficult to get back to every single one of you these days. There is just so many comments each and every single day, but that is amazing. All of those things really help the channel out, and I massively appreciate it. And the other thing, as I'm sure you are very well aware, is I am hugely appreciative of my Patreons, who I now have 106 of you guys, and we are doing fortnightly live sessions, some theory, some practical, and it is all building towards the Life of Hair Digital Academy that I am so eager to bring to you guys. There are some things that are creating some fairly large hurdles at the moment, but I will get over them and I will deliver what I said I was going to do. So until then, look after yourselves, be safe, be sane, and enjoy the rest of this video. Kenneth Siu has put his section through the center of the occipital bone. This is a wonderful place to put a horizontal section because you know exactly how much shape you're going to create dependent on the occipital bone shape. So it is a really good marker to start a graduated haircut. Now, Ken has called this a horizontal layered bob. Now, he has started with a vertical finger angle in the back. So let's play the video on a little bit and then you can kind of see, and we'll talk about maybe why he called it horizontal a little bit later. Because for me, horizontal is definitely this way. On with the video. So what we've noticed here is Ken is taking vertical sections and he's pulling the hair more or less straight out from the head shape. His client's head is slightly down. So this means that if her head was in a neutral position, his finger angle would be graduating, cutting a graduated line. So if you have wrist issues and you don't want to hold your wrist in an awkward angle, it's really useful to get the client to put their head down. It flattens out the occipital bone, and then when you put their head up, actually what you've created is graduation, which is a very, very useful thing to do. Now, if we look very closely as well, as he cuts through these sections, what Ken is doing is, I hope he doesn't mind me calling him Ken. If you're watching this, Kenneth, sorry. You've put down Kenneth. So from this point on, we're going to call you Kenneth. So what we've come to notice is that he's pulling the hair straight out from the head, but then as he drops down his section, his finger angle is coming a little bit more steep. And so he's creating a graduation that will bevel in even tighter towards the bottom edge, which is something that works really, really nicely. If you've never tried that on your graduated bobs, try it. Get the client to put their head forward, pull the hair straight out from the head, cut a square line with the head down, and then drop your finger angle slightly, and it creates an even more rounded graduation in the back. Really, really nice little technique there to see. So we're going to watch that a little bit more just now. What Ken has now done is continued in exactly the same fashion, but he's really over directing that hair back as far as it will go. So effectively, if he cross checks this section, what he's going to have is a very, very square line in the back with his graduation. And that has meant that the length will get longer towards the cheek slash neckline slash cheekbone. The shape is going to drop into the front. It's indicative of using over direction. The more we over direct, you get length in the opposite direction. So if you over direct back, you get length in the front, and if you over direct from the front, then you get length in the back. So a good example of over directing through the front is the shag haircut that I've done several videos on in the past, where we retain the weight and the length through the back. A graduated bob is exactly the opposite haircut to a shag haircut, and actually shag is long graduation, so it's just in reverse. So for those of you that find the idea of graduation can be daunting and not really understand it, whichever way you pull the hair, it gets longer in the opposite direction. It's that simple. This is a minor observation and something that I just want you to pay attention to. Kenneth's finger angle is, as he cuts the section, he is bending his fingers down to accommodate his hand position. Now, this isn't what he was doing on the opposite side when he had his finger angle with his palm facing him. Now, what I would say about doing something like that is if you want your haircut to be exactly the same on both sides, then you must do exactly the same thing on each side. You can't start bending your fingers round to get your scissors in behind your fingers. You watch these next few sections, Kenneth will start to pivot his finger angle. Once he's got his section and you can see his guide, he pivots his finger angle round to attempt to get the scissor in to cut the section. Now, Ken's a brilliant hairdresser, no doubt about it, but that is something to be very aware of for yourselves. If you want to improve your technical cutting abilities, you really need to be disciplined in doing the same thing on both sides exactly the same way each time. Otherwise, the balance will always be off. That's why, as well, just on another note, quite often people get a hole on a graduated bob here and not on one side. They get, say if you're a right-hander, quite often you get this side right, but then you'll get this side with a hole in it. And that is because we go from this angle to this angle as we cut hair. And I actually am a big fan of just keeping in one finger angle rather than flipping it upside down. But that's just, you know, my thoughts, my feelings. I'm sure Ken will smash this as he works through the technique, but it is something to bear in mind for you guys at home practicing, wanting to improve your skills. Finger angle needs to remain the same. You need to do the same section size even on both sides to get perfect symmetry. We're talking perfection here. I mean, not that I'm ever in pursuit of perfection. I don't believe in it. I always think about improving. Perfection is a pursuit that I don't get involved with. So let's get on with the video. From this angle, although it's a very similar angle to the side we saw previously, we can actually see that the over direction is, on this side, seems to be coming further into the center back. The over direction is traveling quite a long way. Now, what that won't give him is a square line as he pulls out his graduation. If he was going to cross check, he's actually going to have more length built up towards the front because he's over directing. He's taking everything past vertically straight out from the head. So that's going to build up even more length traveling towards that front hairline. So that would be interesting to see the end of this video, to see how much length he actually retains and whether this shape is a strong A-line shape right down towards the front. What we've seen here in this last couple of seconds is Kenneth going back through and pulling his sections out and point cutting the sections because this side is slightly heavier. And as I was saying to you previously, actually I noticed that he over directed further on this side than he did on the previous side, certainly to my eyes anyway. And now he's correcting what he did previously, and this is where doing exactly the same thing on both sides of the head becomes so important, because he's changed his finger angle and he's not maintained the same cutting angle that he did on the left side. He's now created more over direction than he had previously, hence building up the weight in that area towards the ear more than he wanted to for balance. So that's really interesting that he's now going back and correcting that, which is good to see. Obviously, we're not all, like I said, perfectionism isn't real. We all need to do things and then know how to fix them. Kenneth has seen that he's got too much weight on that right hand side and gone back and fixed it very quickly. Good job, Kenneth. So Kenneth has now taken what seems like a horseshoe section. Can't see it perfectly here. It runs from the parietal ridge round to the opposite side, and it's given him a strip of hair that incorporates the first kind of 2.5 inches in this front hairline area that travels all the way around through the center of the occipital bone, and that has given him a nice section as the similar size as to the one that he had in the nape area. And so I haven't seen the rest of this video, so let's see what he does with it. But I can imagine again he's going to take vertical sections and travel through and over direct everything back, but we're going to see for ourselves as we go through. So we can see that Kenneth now has traveled towards the back of the ear, and he's done exactly what I imagined he was going to do. He was going to over direct the hair straight back, creating lots of length towards the front. So this is obviously going to now be repeated all the way through these front sections, and everything's going to be pulled straight back. Now, one of the things that I want you to notice is his finger angle is very, very square relative to the head shape. Again, the client's head's forward, so that is going to create some graduation. But because he dropped his finger angle in the nape slightly, so if he first had a square finger angle relative to the head with the head forward, then he dropped it down. Now he's working with a head forward square finger angle again. He's actually creating a very, very beveled, rounded graduated shape, rather than a graduated shape that is very, very stacked and heavy, like a traditional Vidal Sassoon graduated shape would be. This is a much more fluid shape going through the head, hence the name Balayage Bob cut. Stop the video at 4 minutes and 26 seconds. Now, his sections aren't necessarily horizontal, but that very first section that he just cut, his finger angle is horizontal. He's elevated his elbow, and he is then creating a horizontal finger shape. And that elevation is also going to enhance the length, because while we've got elevation and we've got over direction. And when we elevate and we over direct simultaneously, one, we create layer. When we elevate, we always create a softer shape. But then once we've got that horizontal finger angle like that as well, he's still creating graduation through the back, but that elevation and over direction will be accentuating the length towards the front. So this haircut, we can probably already know, is going to be graduated and, you know, quite a lot of length left in the front. Now, it might be that he goes and cuts that length shorter. It's fine hair, or reasonably fine hair. So it might be that he wants to put a very strong outline into the finished result. We shall see. But for me, obviously, everything he's doing is leading towards creating extreme length towards the front. So let's see what happens. So as I said, we didn't get to see the right hand side, but actually we are going to get to see the right hand side. It's just that he's worked one side in its entirety before he's moved on to the opposite side. Now that's very good if you're very, very confident, but what I would say to you guys, if you're not a great confident hair cutter, then work each side as you go through the haircut. This way you can check your balance as you go. You can make sure your section sizes are the same, which is very important for achieving good balance in your haircuts. But working through one entire side and then trying to match it on the opposite side can be very, very tricky indeed. So if you are very, very proficient at cutting hair, then be my guest. But if you're not so proficient at cutting hair, or it's something, cutting short hair, something that you find daunting, take on the same section on the opposite side that you just cut to make sure your balance is right as you work through the haircut. Just a hot tip. So interestingly, on this right side again, Kenneth is doing exactly the same thing with his finger angle. He's twisting his fingers again that he doesn't do on the opposite side to accommodate maybe his scissors, maybe he's just got into a habit of doing this. Now, you know, like I said before, if you want the same result on both sides, try your best to do the same thing on both sides. If you're in the habit of doing this and you haven't noticed, it's probably good to kind of film yourself. You don't have to share it with anybody, cutting somebody's hair or a mannequin head or whatever, and just monitor that you're doing exactly the same thing on both sides. That would be a really useful thing to do, you know, to practice your personal technique. So we can see Mr. Kenneth here has blasted off the hair. In fact, we don't get to see the entire finished look on this particular video, but there is lots of length traveling towards the front. The whole haircut pushes forward, and that is because of over direction. So this is a really hot tip, guys, when you're using over direction. Over direction obviously creates length in the opposite direction, like we said earlier. But if you over direct in one direction, the haircut will have a tendency to want to fall in the opposite way that you cut it. So we can see with the styling here, the hair is really falling forward, and that's indicative of the shape that Kenneth has created. He's created a lot of length and a lot of movement traveling towards the front. So this hair will naturally want to sit a bit more forward like that, because of that very rounded graduated shape and the over direction that he used in the top sections. So really good if your client wants a lot of movement through the sides. Perfect. And there we have it, a graduated bob, and I guess a layered graduated bob at that. I'm not sure about the horizontal part that is in the description of this haircut, and the only time he was actually horizontal is with his finger angle through those top sections, but apart from that, the finger angle for me was vertical all the way through. So who knows why it was called horizontal graduated layered bob cut. So great haircut though, super salon friendly, super commercial. can't speak tonight, super commercial, easy to do haircut in the salon, and one that I think every hairdresser should have in their toolkit and be able to pull out at a moment's notice and absolutely ace it. And like I said in the video, some great things to think about for you guys at home. Finger angle. If you're going to cut one way, one side, when you flip your hand round, make sure that you retain that finger angle, or alternatively cut through both sides with the same hand shape. Just a little tip for you guys to take home. I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. Have a great week, and I'll speak to you all again very soon for another episode of The Life of Hair.